The fear of death is indeed the pretense of wisdom, and not real wisdom, being the appearance of knowing the unknown. Socrates. Imagine waking each day with the weight of your own mortality pressing down on you. The clock ticking, the sand falling, the inevitable end approaching with each breath you take. Here lies the great paradox. We fear most what we understand least. Death, the one certainty in life, becomes our greatest terror precisely because it remains forever beyond our experience. This fear burrows deep, becoming the invisible architect of your choices. It whispers that you must accumulate, achieve, distract, anything to avoid confronting the abyss that awaits us all. But what if this fear is based on an illusion? What if, as Socrates discovered, our terror of death is merely the shadow of our ignorance projected onto the unknown? What if the very thing you've been running from is actually a doorway to your liberation? This is the radical proposition that awaits you on the other side of understanding. Your fear of death isn't random. It's wired into your biology, reinforced by culture, and perpetuated by a society that treats mortality as the ultimate taboo. Socrates understood this 2,400 years ago. When sentenced to death, he didn't beg or flee. Instead, he questioned the very foundation of this fear that held his accusers captive. To fear death, he reasoned, is nothing other than to think oneself wise when one is not. For how can we fear what we do not know? How can we dread what might be nothing at all? This fear silently reshapes your existence, limiting joy, constraining choices, and draining the present moment of its vitality. It is the invisible prison of the living. Your brain, wired for survival, creates elaborate defense mechanisms: denial, distraction, delusion, all to shield you from confronting mortality. These psychological barriers become the very chains that bind you. The urgency to accumulate wealth, legacy, even the desperate pursuit of youth, all stem from this primal terror. But do these pursuits truly protect you, or merely distract you? What if the fear itself is the true enemy, not death? What if your terror of non-existence is actually preventing you from fully existing right now? Here is where Socrates offers his radical perspective shift. Death may be the greatest of all human blessings, not because life is worthless, but because our fear of death makes us unable to truly live. To overcome this fear requires not courage, but curiosity, not faith, but philosophy, not denial, but direct confrontation with the unknown that awaits us all. Socrates proposed a revolutionary method: examine death through rational inquiry, question assumptions, explore possibilities, challenge the inherited fears that masquerade as wisdom. Begin by questioning. What exactly do you fear about death? The process of dying? The state of non-existence? The unknown beyond? Each fear, when examined, reveals itself as a phantom of speculation. Consider this possibility. Your fear of death is actually fear of not having truly lived. What would change if you faced each day not as a step toward death, but as an opportunity for authentic existence? Here lies the profound revelation. Death gives meaning to life precisely because it ends. Without finitude, would anything hold value? Would any moment be precious? Would any choice matter? Either death is a state of nothingness and utter unconsciousness, or there is a change and migration of the soul from this world to another, Socrates reasoned. Even so, what evil can happen to a good man, either in life or after death? This is freedom, not the absence of death, but the absence of fear. Not immortality, but the courage to face mortality with clear eyes and an open heart. The practice is simple yet profound. Daily contemplation of death, not as something to avoid, but as a teacher. What would you do differently if you truly accepted your mortality? What would fall away as meaningless? As you practice this Socratic approach to death, notice how your priorities clarify. Petty concerns diminish. Authentic connections deepen. The present moment, the only moment you ever truly have, comes alive. This is the wisdom that allowed Socrates to face his execution with tranquility. Not because he didn't value life, but because he understood that a life ruled by fear of death is no life at all. The most radical discovery awaits. Your fear of death has never been about death at all. It has always been about your resistance to life, to vulnerability, uncertainty, and the raw, unfiltered experience of being human. When you truly internalize that death gives meaning to life rather than taking it away, everything transforms. The finite becomes precious precisely because it ends. Your choices gain weight because they are limited in number. In his final hours, Socrates demonstrated the ultimate freedom, not from death, but from the fear of it. The hour of departure has arrived, he said, and we go our separate ways, I to die and you to live. Which is better? Only God knows. This is the invitation before you now, to step beyond the ancient fear that has limited human consciousness for millennia, to recognize that what you've been running from has actually been running you. The greatest wisdom may be this: death is not something that happens at the end of life. It is the constant companion that gives each moment its urgency, beauty, and meaning. Not an enemy, but the greatest of teachers. When you no longer flee from death, but incorporate its reality into your consciousness, you gain access to a quality of presence that few ever know, the exquisite awareness of life's impermanence. The unexamined life is not worth living, Socrates taught. And perhaps the most important examination is this: can you face your mortality not with fear, but with wonder? Not with resistance, but with grace. For in that transformation lies true freedom.